Good morning, everybody, and welcome to What's Real in Real Estate, where we talk about what's really happening in the real estate market in Las Vegas and all around the world. I'm Ellie Morris with Signature Real Estate Group, and I'm glad to be with you today. I'm excited about our guest today, Neil Schwartz. If you're in the real estate business, you all know who Neil Schwartz is. Nobody does not. I've known Neil for about 10 years. When we first met, he was teaching a class over at our Hillwood office, and it was just so entertaining and just so informative. I've always enjoyed your classes, man. Always.
Well, thank you. I mean, I've been doing this for 36 years. When I first started real estate, I was 6'3" and 170 pounds. Now you can see me that it's certainly not the same anymore. More like 5'5" and 185 pounds.
This business will do it to you, won't it?
It will do it to you. Yeah, it certainly will.
That's funny. So tell me a little bit about you, your background a little bit.
Well, originally I was in show business. I was a performer, an actor, singer, dancer. I did several years of as a semi-regular on Happy Days with the Fonz. And I was 30 years old when I played an 18-year-old on that show. And then I did some Broadway shows. And for about 3 or 4 years, I toured over the whole world with Liza Minnelli and her nightclub act.
Wow.
And had a great time. She was only 18 at the time, and I was in her first Broadway show. And so I was in that business for 42 years. I was in that business till I was 42. It was interesting because when I went to college, I was instructed by someone very close to me that not only should I take my theater arts degree, but I should get a degree in elementary education. So if I needed to teach, I could. So while I was living in New York and California, in between shows, I was able to be a substitute elementary school teacher.
Interesting. That had to help a little bit.
Yeah, it was pretty interesting. And so I did that. And some years I was an actor, and some years I was a teacher. And then when I was 42 years old, I was thinking about the future, and I had two great children, a boy and a girl, who take after my wife. They're very, very intelligent, and they were going to need top of the line education. And even though I was doing okay in show business, I wasn't doing what I thought I needed to do to provide that for them. So many people encouraged me for a long time to go into real estate. So my wife and I both had a dancing studio in Simi Valley too. So I decided to leave that and go into real estate. So I really kind of went from show business to show business.
That's right. That's right.
Because this is show business.
Well, I'm going to go back to I did some research myself, but I missed a lot, I'm sure. But I was surprised to see some of the shows you were on. I want to come back to that a bit. Okay. Because Neil's not only a respected educator here, and he's been in the business for many decades, and you were a former commissioner.
Yes, I was very, very pleased to be appointed by Governor Sandoval to the Real Estate Commission, which is an appointment, and you spend the first 3-year term, and then you can get reappointed for another 3 years. So maximum was 6.
How many were you on?
6.
Okay.
And then you're timed down.
Okay.
You could come back, but you have to take 3 years off to do that. So it was an incredible experience.
I'll bet it had to be. Now, do you only hear cases here, or do you also go to Reno?
Well, the commission generally meets 4 times a year, 3 times down here in the south, and only 1 up north, basically because the majority of the agents, obviously, and the majority of the cases are here in the south. So we're here 3 times, and then 1 time we go up to Carson City.
Oh, Carson City. I sat through a few, because they allow us to come to the city for education, and unfortunately, I was nothing exciting. It was very boring, but it was interesting just to see the process and how it all worked.
Yeah, there are 5 commissioners. That, like I said, they're all appointed. We're all volunteers. We don't get paid. And when I was on the commission for the 6 years, I looked at my fellow commissioners. There were 4 others, and I added up the number of years each of them had been in the business. Mm-hmm. And so I was sitting on a commission where all told we had about 135 years of real estate experience. But no matter how we had all that experience, we would hear things in cases on a regular basis that we had never heard happen before.
I can imagine. As I can imagine. We talked earlier, you're going to tell a couple stories.
Oh, well, yeah.
There's some interesting things. People are just crazy, aren't they?
Oh yeah, so real estate agents, to be quite honest with you. We had the naked repairman.
I love that story.
So the situation was this lady in her mid-30s with a 12-year-old daughter was renting a condo, and it was being property managed by a property management company. And I think it was on a Sunday morning, she called up the property management company and said she had a leak in her sink and her garbage disposal wasn't working right. And so whoever answered the phone, typically they would then contact a plumber who would go over and take care of it. But for some reason, they had a few people in the audience, in the office, and the gentleman, one of the realtors, had come back from church to do some business. He was all dressed in a tie and a jacket, and she yelled out, "Could anybody fix any plumbing?" And he said, "Yeah, I can help." So he went over to fix the plumbing, and he got over. It was a very hot June day. Condo was hot. He was dressed in a tie and a jacket. And so he started to fool around with it, and he started to sweat a little bit. He turned to the lady and he said, quote, "Can I take off my clothes?" Well, the lady, tenant, thought, well, what he really meant was, can he take off his jacket? And so she proceeded to say yes. And he stripped naked, including his underwear, and turned around, bent over, and continued working on the sink.
Oh, he did. Oh, he continued working.
Oh, yeah.
Totally.
And
naked.
she tried to get him to stop, get dressed. It took her a long time. And meanwhile, her 12-year-old daughter was in the apartment also, in sight. Finally, he listened to her. Finally, he got dressed and she left. And of course, she was all upset about it. And she reported to the police and, of course, to the brokerage. And so we heard that case in front of 250 other agents that were visiting the commission hearings at that time.
And this agent had to be in the meeting. He was there, wasn't he?
Oh, he had to be called. Yeah, he came down. He had to stand in front of 250 agents, and then they had to read line by line what happened. And he thought that she gave him permission to remove his clothes. Well, long story short, obviously he was fined, but more importantly, thankfully, we took his license away.
That's crazy. Now, after being a commissioner, is there somewhere else you can go? Is there a next
Well, sometimes they like that the commissioners to go somewhere, but that's not really. It was the best part of my career. I just had a great, because I'm very interested, as you mentioned, in education. I think real estate agents, better educated agents are well-paid agents, but they'll also stay out of trouble, and so will their clients. So I'm big in education. So I was the force, along with the other commissioners, to make some major changes in our education process. It was lucky when I was on, almost all 5 of the commissioners were educators. I mean, they taught, so they knew what was going on. So we made some major changes for many, many years. To continue having your license, you had to take 12 of 24 continuing education credits every 2 years. You know, things like ethics, things like agency, things like contracts, and things of that nature. Well, over the time that I was there, I was able to convince them to move it up further to 36 hours, and everybody agreed with me. And now that's the new rule. You have to take 36 hours. But it was interesting. It wasn't really myself or the commission that did that and demanded that. It was the public, because we get feedback from the public.
You know, I love this business, but I know we need the 16,000 realtors to continue as part of the business, but I come across some people that I wonder how the hell they got their license, and then they're in the business. Look, they're in the business 10, 12 years. How are they still in the business? They know so little about the business.
Yeah, and it's very difficult to keep them out of the business. You know, someone say, well, let's raise the fees. Well, you can't do that. Just the department won't let you do that. But to be quite honest with you, it really all lies on the brokers, the people who hire these agents.
Well, let me ask you, this happened to me recently, and okay, I'm getting there. I was 69 in a few minutes, and I'm getting older. So I'm empathetic to an older agent, but we have a lot of agents who are older and they do it very spare time now. The part-time's one thing, spare time. So I get an offer on a listing, handwritten, which is so unusual.
Yes.
Which that's fine, okay, that's a little bit. It's got a 3-day due diligence period. It had a 5-day loan contingency. There were so many things wrong. Now, I don't know if what I did was right or wrong. I couldn't help it. I called the lady. I said, are you sure this is how you want to submit that? I said, maybe you want to go talk to your broker. No, this is great. I said, you really want, and I was trying to do the best I could to coach. And she'd been in the business 4 years. She hadn't done a deal in 4 years.
Right.
Those kind of people are a problem, aren't they?
Yes, and one of the things you did was you kind of abided by our code of ethics by reaching out and trying to help another agent do their business properly. And it's most difficult the way some of these. I mean, I had an agent that made a contract, and at that time you chose who would pay the HOA fees, okay, and how they would be split. And typically, when you transfer a home, a new person takes over the HOA fees, just the monthly fees. Well, she asked for my seller to pay the HOA fees forever.
Oh.
But it wasn't, she made a mistake. And because she made a mistake, which really drives me crazy when they don't check the right boxes, then as a good listing agent, I had to counter. Well, while I was countering and trying to clean that up, it was a time of the market we were having 10, 12 offers on a property. Okay. And by the time she got back to me, my seller had already chosen another buyer. And so I try to work really hard with the agents to make sure that they fill out the contracts properly so we can get business done.
Yeah, I think part of the problem is even though some agents call themselves full-time, they don't have another job. Doesn't mean they're really full-time.
Yeah, I mean, like I was talking to the class yesterday, how many agents have you called at 8 o'clock in the morning with a question on the property, and you don't get a call back until 5? Where do you think they've been? They've been working.
I know. And look, I was in the insurance business for years, and we hired a lot of part-timers. And I think part-timers are good and bad. But again, there's a difference between a part-timer and a spare timer. To me, a part-timer treats it as a part-time business. They treat it seriously. A spare timer, all right, I'll get to it when I get to it. And nothing frustrates me more.
So, you mentioned about some of the things we heard at the commission hearing. So I gotta tell you another funny story. It wasn't funny at the time, but it's funny. So this gentleman, he's at work, and he has a 10-year-old daughter. The elementary school calls him about 10 o'clock and says, your daughter's not feeling well. You're going to need to come and pick her up. So he leaves work and he goes to school. He picks her up. He takes her home. Now, our home is listed. It's got a key safe on it. And so they walk into the house, and as they get into the house, the father asks the daughter to go down to his bedroom and get him something. I don't remember what it was. And a few minutes, she comes back hysterical, crying, and he says, what's the matter? He says, Dad, there are 2 naked people in your bed. So the dad picks himself up, he walks to the back. By the time he gets down there, sure enough, there are 2 half-naked people getting dressed on either side of the bed. And as he walks in, they start walking out, and the gentleman says to him, I guess I should put the key back in the key safe, and walks out. Well, after everybody calms down, he calms down his daughter, he calls his agent. He tells the agent what happened. The agent comes over, and our key safes, if you can actually electronically read them and know who is in the house at what time, their phone number and such. So his agent comes over and reads the key safe, gets the printout, brings it back to his broker. His broker looks at it, then they go ahead and they call the other agent's broker. The attorneys get involved, the other agent's fired, but the seller decides to bring the case in front of the commission. So we're hearing the case, and of course, when there's a case, they do a very thorough investigation. We have a credible investigation team, and they go out. And so during the investigation, they also looked at the readout from the key safe. And they discovered that this particular gentleman accessed and was in that house 10 times.
That same house?
Yeah, out of the last 15 days.
Wow.
Can you say change the sheets?
Yeah.
So it just blew us away. We hear stories like that, can't believe it. But it's interesting. We've had people who have wanted their license and have committed felonies. Some we had committed manslaughter.
Really?
It's in the application in our state. One of the question marks says, questions asked, have you ever committed a felony? And if you check yes, by statute, you're automatically declined a real estate license. But you can appeal. So we've sat down and we've heard many appeals of people they brought their probation officers, they brought their arresting officers, they brought and some of these, were 10, 15 years, 20 years ago, they paid their time, they finished jail, they finished probation. So most of the time after we hear those discussions, we can overturn that and grant them the license. We have heard people who have been accused and found guilty of pedophilia and sex crimes. While I was on the commission, and before and even after, I've never heard the commission ever reverse and ever give them a license. We've always still denied them. Too dangerous for the public. We have to adjust. We have to see, is this person a danger to the public?
Right, of course.
So it's really interesting.
I'll bet it is. Now, I sit on grievance. I sit on professional standards now. What are the steps before it gets to the commission?
Well, they're really separate. I mean, there are a lot of things that come to the grievance and the professional standards that have to do with ethics.
Yes.
The commission only hears law.
Okay.
645. We are an administrative body. We can fine people up to $10,000 per violation. And we can also require that they go to CE classes for more education. And we also can revoke or take their license away. We don't specifically send people to jail because that's not what we're required to do. But since most of all the cases are handled by the state attorney generals, they prepare all the cases legally against the proposed violator. If the state, and this has happened, if the state attorney general feels that what this first person did was also criminal, fraud, mail fraud, then they separately can take the case and take it up criminally. And I do remember one instance where they did that to someone who we took their license away, but because of what that person did was so egregious and had criminal acts involved, including mail fraud, they brought the case up and that person spent 4 years in prison. Wow. But we don't do that.
Yeah, I got you. Okay, that's interesting. Before we get into, I really want to talk about your acting, but before we get to that, I want to ask you, because again, you've been in this business so long, you know as well as anybody out there, where do you see the market going next? You look at your watch and every 30 seconds there's a change. Interest rates go up, interest rates go down. We're suffering from a lack of inventory now, of course. People who have houses at 3.5% are not interested in moving right now because if they move, they got to pay 7% for a mortgage. So we're really tight on inventory. I do see some feeder states like California where it's getting completely crazy with expenses, that there are a lot of people moving out and a lot of them are moving here. This day and age, we don't have to be in the office anymore. Right.
They can be anywhere in the world. You can have a person who does your investment. They don't have to be in New York. They don't have to be in California. They can be anywhere there's a computer. So we're seeing a lot of those people moving here.
I just read that 8 people move here every hour, and 5 of them come from California.
Yeah. And so there's a great change. There also is a great change, and because we've been such a successful state and city, we've also attracted a large number of people into our business.
Oh, yes.
So we have almost 17,000 agents in our local association, but the National Association says, and the reality is that 80% of them that come into the business, let's say this week, 80% of them probably won't be in our business within 2 years. Yeah. Because that's how difficult it is. It's a simple business, but it's not always an easy business.
No, it's not. First, you have to be disciplined, which is
right.
difficult for a lot of people.
Very, very so.
But I'm glad that 80%, which was 90%.
But while they're in the business for those 2 years, they do a little. They have an effect on it, on the business, and they kind of screw it up.
Yes, they do.
So I'm really focused on when I teach agents to really understand what their responsibilities are and how they need to act professionally. I mean, I tell them that they're in show business also, and I give the example that when I was in show business, I'd get to the theater early, so I was never late. You have to be there a half hour before, that's typical. And then you would be prepared. You put on your makeup and your costume. And I'm telling these agents that they're in show business and they have to be prepared to put on their makeup and their costume, and not too much perfume, not too much makeup. And I kid the ladies, and they all agree with me. You have to decide what you're going to wear when you're taking clients out. I mean, if you decide that you're going to show too much cleavage, and you've got a husband and a wife in your office,
Absolutely.
and the wife is looking at the husband staring at you, you ain't getting the deal.
No, you're not.
I'm
shocked sometimes.
She's not going to let him work with you.
No. When I see them, listen, I'm not a prude, but I see the way some of these gals dress.
Right.
I just wonder what they're thinking.
Yeah.
Are they going to a disco, or are they going to go try to take a listen? I don't
Yeah.
know.
Right.
It's very difficult to tell the difference. Well, listen, when I found out that you were Bags Dombrowski, I almost fell over. Because I watched that show regularly. I remember the character very well. And when you told me you were 32 years old,
yeah,
this was fantastic.
And that was a pretty amazing thing. Ron Howard and Henry and all the
Happy Days.
Yeah, were absolutely fabulous because it's very difficult when you have a series like that and you have actors that are there every week and they're well known, that when you come in as a guest into their world, they were very receptive, very warm. I had a great time, and I did a character called Bags, and it was the fact that I was a younger child, and my brother would pass me down all his clothes, which were too big. So yeah, I did crazy stuff. They took my pants off once, and I mean, it was terrific. It was really a great show.
I'll bet it was.
Yeah.
I bet it was. I remember the character very well. Now I looked up some things. I was surprised to see you were on Barney Miller.
Yep, when they were All in the Family.
Oh, I didn't start on All in the Family. What's Happening?
Yeah,
one of my favorite shows growing up was Love American Style.
Yep, I did one on that. I didn't do too many of those, but I did that, and then I did a show called Steam Bath.
I read about that. I saw pictures of you from Steam Bath.
Oh, did you see?
Yes, I did.
Steam Bath was played by Bruce J. Friedman. It was off Broadway, and it was very avant-garde, very wild place. It takes place in a steam bath, where the steam bath attendant is God, and he controls everything on earth that goes on. It crashes, deaths, births. But when you die or in the process of dying, if he thinks you have a good story on why you shouldn't continue dying, he zaps you into this steam room. And so it was a mixture of all the Valerie Perrine was in it. I don't know if you know Valerie Perrine, gorgeous.
Sure.
At the beginning of the show, she comes out with a little towel. It's a steam room with a towel around her bottom and a towel across her chest, but nothing else on it. She takes that off and she takes a shower. And this was 30, 40 years ago, and it only played on educational TV. But it was interesting. While we were doing it, they built the set. We shot it in California. It was a full steam room, and so they decided that they would need steam, and so they spent lots of time and money by getting steam machines. First, they had them inside the sound stage, and they ran lots of cable and wires underneath. But they couldn't do that because the steam machines were making too much noise. So they moved them outside, and then yet it only took after 20 minutes they had to stop. So the steam machines went. It was costing them a fortune. So finally they said, "Listen, forget the steam. We'll impose it after." Okay. So we finished shooting. Bill Bixby was the star. Great. And so they shot it. They put it together, and then they did a preview for a lot of people, and including all the actors that went there. And they never had to add steam because nobody ever noticed that there was no steam. But that was an interesting thing. I played a person who was with another person. We were significant others to each other at that time, both dancers in the show, and we had to act together. We said the lines together. We also had to do a little dance number together, and we also had to have costumes, right? So I remember the day at rehearsal, the wardrobe person came in and said, "We're here to measure for costumes." And we really it was a big script. We really hadn't read the whole thing. And so he comes up to me, he takes out the tape measure, he puts it around my waist, he calls out the number, his assistant writes it down, and they walk away. I said, wait, what about inseam? He says, "That's all you need for a towel." Because that's what we wore. A towel. And so we had to, it was kind of crazy. And everybody in the world saw that show. And they still play it now when they want to make money, raise money. They still play that show.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
And you said it on public television?
Yeah, it was on public television. It was never on regular television. And one of the reasons it didn't play in the South for a long time, and the reason was not because of the nudity involved, But the guy who was playing God was Puerto Rican with a very Puerto Rican accent, and they felt that a lot of people in the South would not be able to stand God as a Puerto Rican steam attendant. But after a while, the pressure came on, and they all had to play it.
Interesting.
It was wild. It was a wild show.
How many episodes? We had more than one episode of what was it, Barney Miller?
Only one episode of Barney, and in All in the Family, I played a Jewish TV repairman.
Oh, okay.
That I got invited over to the house to fix the repairman. He gave me a hard time, and I said in Yiddish, and I don't remember the word, but in English it was he should book himself into a hotel and have a stomach ache in every room. but that was another every show I played with was great.
That's cool. I did when I first got in town here. I got involved with the Jewish National Fund,
Right.
Theory, and I went to one of their early first qualifiers, and I played with Hal Linden.
Yeah. Oh, Hal. Yeah.
Seems like a real nice guy. I came across a real nice guy.
Yeah, I was very fortunate when I was working with Liza Minnelli. Of course, her mother Judy Garland was still alive, and everybody in show business went to see Liza because it was Judy's daughter. So when we played an audience at the Ambassador Hotel in Los Angeles, Judy, Mickey, Rooney, you name the person, Kirk.
They were all there.
Everybody came.
Wow.
It was pretty amazing. So, and I had great experiences with it.
And you said you spent time on Broadway.
Yeah, I did 2 shows. I did a first show with Liza Minnelli, Flora the Red Menace. Unfortunately, it only played for 10 weeks, but you could get a Tony Award.
She did.
Yeah.
Really?
And then when that started to close, and I did a special number in there with my dance partner at the time, who was very tall and skinny, but a Mutt and Jeff type of thing. Matter of fact, I used to get paid $5 a pound.
Yeah.
They wouldn't let me lose weight.
Really?
Yeah, and so I had to keep, because it wouldn't work unless I.
Yeah.
And while I was rehearsing, of course, you tighten up, you're exercising. So I'd come into the theater at 11 o'clock for rehearsal. We'd run the number, and the choreographer would come down and say, "Okay, Neil, thanks a lot. Go to your dressing room. We'll call you at 5. We'll send you up a malted or a milkshake." They wouldn't let me. It was crazy. But that closed, and then I went into another show, which was a running show on Sherlock Holmes show. I played it, and then I was only in there for 5 weeks because Liza's manager and agent called myself and my other partner at that time and said, "Liza's doing a nightclub act, and we'd like you two to be her dancers."
Oh.
Which was very unusual at that time, especially here in Las Vegas. When a singer did a star like that did a show, they'd have either 10 dancing boys, typical, which you would think about as chorus boys, or 10 showgirls. But they decided to do something different, so it was that. And then I did Radio City Music Hall.
Oh, wow.
Came out on a white horse.
Really?
Oh, yeah. And that's a place where the Rockettes and the ballet, they work 7 days and they're off 3. Since I was the principal dancer in the show, I had 4 shows a day, 7 days a week. Wow. Never a day off.
No kidding.
And they changed the show based on the success of the movie. They do, whoever plays there. So I thought I was going to run 4 or 5 weeks. Well, when I did the first show, the movie was Bullet.
Huh?
It lasted 12 weeks.
Wow.
4 shows a day, 7 days a week.
Man.
Never missed a show.
And when did you start tap dancing?
Oh, tap dancing, I started dancing when I was 3.
Oh.
But let me just tell you a quick story about tap dancing. So a couple of 5 years later, after we did the hour-and-a-half steam bath, we got a call. They wanted to do a series on Showtime. A weekly series with guest deaths, people coming into the steam bath that were there. So every week there'd be a different star. Okay. But every week we had to do a dance. The 2 of us in the steam room in a towel had to do a dance. It was part of the thing.
Wow.
So I was also hired as a choreographer. So my partner and I, every week we had to come up with a dance. So we had a soft shoe one week, we did a diff tango one week together, and then one week I think we decided to do a tap dance. So it's 45 seconds and a minute. So we were in the steam bath, only a towel, and we're standing and we're doing the tap dance. So after this director cuts, and I started to think about it, I said, would it be great if we went into the sound stage and put on our tap shoes and dubbed the taps into the thing? Oh, that's a great idea. So when you see that particular thing, you see us dancing barefoot, but you hear the taps.
That's great. That's fantastic.
Oh, yeah.
Corey,
It was
I love choreography
Yeah,
too.
it was a
Wow.
choreographer too.
Is that easy to find? Can you find it on YouTube or?
You can search Steve. Yeah, you can search Steve Bath, and it was on Showtime. I think it's still around there.
Oh, that's interesting.
So it was crazy.
So you must have some favorite shows all the time. What are your favorite Broadway plays?
Well, Fiddle on the Roof, of course, Cabaret, things like that. There's a lot. My favorite, of course, is it just went out of my head. Hamilton.
Oh,
I know everyone. It's brilliant.
I've never seen that, and I heard it was fantastic.
And every time you listen to it, you hear something different.
Yeah.
It's absolutely amazing. So it's brilliant. So
That's fantastic.
yeah, and when I was at the end, every time the award show would come on, and I'd been out of the business for a while, and I still saw some of the friends I knew. I had a little urge, but no.
Do you ever go to any of the award shows?
No, not anymore. No.
Have you ever gone to one?
Yeah, no. I've performed in a couple.
Oh, really?
Choice Awards and a couple of other ones, but
Wow.
in dancing, but that's it.
That's fantastic,
Yep.
man. That's fantastic. Well, I can't thank you enough. This was
great.
I enjoyed the heck out of it, man. I know everybody else will too. But I always ask guests to come on 3 questions. One is your favorite restaurant in town.
Oh, okay. Right now I'm into Japanese and Sushi Fever on Sahara is my favorite.
Okay.
They're wonderful people. I like Japanese rolls, and they had a roll called a Dr. Garber, and I fell in love with it. And the lady said,
What is a Dr. Gerber?
It's a roll that has tempura, shrimp tempura.
Okay.
So I said, Dr. Garber. He said, yeah, he's here. I said, what do you mean he's here? Well, he's sitting over there. The roll was named after him. So after eating it, I went over to him. I introduced myself. He's a neurosurgeon, and he's there almost every day for lunch. So they named the roll.
No kidding.
So that's one of my favorite restaurants.
That's
and then
great.
there's a new Thai restaurant I like too. That's really pretty over that opened up. It just went out of my mind. I'll think about it.
Because there's no better place for food than this town.
Oh yeah. When I moved here in 1994, I gained a pound a week for 18 months. Pound a month for 18
I
months.
can imagine.
Oh my God.
I can imagine. The food's plentiful here. How about shows? Any local shows that you find exceptional?
We haven't gone to that many. Down on the strip, of course, there's the old standard. There's Mystere, which is the granddaddy of them
Yeah, I
all.
think it's great.
And of course Cobb. These are really spectacular. But since I have a theater background and a technical background and lighting and stuff like that, I sometimes find it real difficult to see those shows.
I was going to ask you.
Because my head is not on the stage; it's up at the window,
Yeah.
looking how they do that, how did they do that. How did they do
I was
that.
wondering if you had a difficult time.
Yes, I
saying
do.
it. Yeah, I'll bet.
Focusing on it.
I can
Yeah,
imagine.
so that's probably my favorite shows right now.
And any outdoor activities? We have so much to do here.
Oh, I'm a swimmer.
Are you?
Yeah, fortunately, about 6 years ago, we downsized. We moved in Siena, which is a 55 and older God-gated community, and their facilities there are outstanding. And they have 2 pools, indoor and outdoor. And the indoor pool is 86 degrees.
Ooh.
Now remember, this is for seniors. It better not go to 87, and it better not go to 85. It has to be 86 degrees, because see, I'm telling you that. And the spa has to be 101.
That's interesting. Yeah.
And so I swim a lot. I
That's
try
good.
to swim a lot. My wife works out a lot. I mean, she's a dancer too.
Oh.
Yeah.
Was Ronnie?
Oh, yeah.
entertainer also?
Oh yeah, she was a great tap dancer and
Oh,
stuff. And
wow.
she danced modern. And we owned a dance studio together, as I mentioned, in Simi Valley in California. Oh yeah, it was great.
That's fantastic.
It's been good. Married 55 years.
55 years.
And she still likes me because I do the cooking.
That's good. Listen, when I see you guys, it's almost rare that I don't see you together. That's
Yeah,
beautiful.
that's
a beautiful thing.
That's true.
Neil, thank you very much.
Thank you.
I sure appreciate it.
And I'm glad you're as active as you are in our association, because we need agents and licensees like you on there, because I know you and I trust you, and I think the decisions that you're going to be part of will be great.
Oh, thank you. I love the business. I love to be whatever I can do to give back. It's my
Thank
pleasure,
you.
man.
Thank you.
Thank you again, Beta. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for watching. Have a great weekend and be nice to each other. Thanks. Bye-bye.